Ani bonjour. Mais je dis que on a mush. La distant cause. J'ai Juxtaposition. Macana do Dajapa. Miigwich Kiwi Dinakwe. Welcome to our homeland. I'm an indigenous person. I'm Anishinaabe. Michigan is my homeland for thousands of years. The colonial government is less than 250 years old. My little community that I reside in right now, called St. Ignace, just celebrated its 350th birthday. 100 years more than the United States itself. And when the Cavaliers and the conquistadors and the explorers came to our homeland, they were greeted by our people, the Anishinaabe. So I would like to welcome you today, and maybe for the first time, DNA, discover Native America. Again, I enjoyed the speakers very much, and I see the parallel, the light, the hopes, the aspirations, the fantasies of a people that is oppressed by a creation of a false idea that man can make laws that are greater than nature. I pray that you don't fall into some trap. You'll be used and cast aside. It's hard for me to listen when I hear platitudes and knowing that real action will never amount to too much. So I will speak to you the truth, something you very rarely ever get to hear, and you're locked in a system that is destined to keep you captive. We say the biggest mistake they made was they didn't kill us all. There's less than 5 million original inhabitants of this homeland. Less than 5 million. We are the smallest subculture in our own country. There's 44,000 American Indians in the state of Michigan. There's 538 federally recognized tribes in the United States, and our total population between 3 and 5 million. But at one point in 1934, which is not that far back, our population was 360,000 original people. That's when they decided that at that point, we're no longer a threat to the greatest invasion, war of annihilation, and Holocaust that ever could take place. But trust me, I'll get to the relevance of the medicine plants, but you have to know how well we're all connected. And then it wasn't until 1978 that they passed the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. So while I hear the stories about what it means to be incarcerated for smoking a little pot or taking some natural plants, that's our life, that's our history, that's all we've ever known. We've been oppressed for our spiritual freedom using a drum, using a rattle, dancing, let alone take medicines. But I applaud you because now this is your fight. And you're taking on an issue that we've been struggling with for a long time. Anishinaabe means the original man from beyond the sun, from whence we came, lowered to the earth. Light beings, luminous bodies, so light that we could walk on the grass and not bend a blade of grass. And we came for a purpose. And with this material world, we developed a material body. So we could learn the 7 grandfathers, the 7 virtues, the belief systems that is our only reason for being on this planet. The beautiful thing is, it includes everyone. The Catholic Church and the colonial government has a hard time explaining indigenous people. And boy, have we been maligned, have we been stereotyped, have we been ignored. But Anishinaabe is all of us. However you interpret stories, we are an oral society, we're an oral tradition, and our things have been kept intact by that method through ceremony and through song, not through books, not through theology or doctrine, but through our ceremonies and song. And so we trust what our elders tell us. Our language has never been adulterated. It's a pure language. Anishinaabe Mowin. So I'll share with you visualizations, and it's up to you to trust. I trust the Anishinaabe Mowin. This language has never been changed. English is a bastard language. It has 24 different languages to make English. So which interpretation do you want? And it's so incomplete that we can't even find words in the English language to explain our cosmology. And yet they'll have you believe in a fairy tale like Adam and Eve. So Anishinaabe, from whence we came, the white tribe, lower to the earth. The black tribe, lower to the earth. The yellow tribe, lower to the earth. And the red tribe. And they stopped. Greater. Well, you know you're sending this to this wonderful place. It's going to be great and beautiful there. What is our purpose? What would you have us do? The Creator said, you're so smart, you're so wise to ask that question. So I will give you the knowledge of the earth. I will give you the knowledge of the plant medicine. So that's why indigenous people are important to what you're doing. That's why our survival is important to what you're doing. When you're thinking of the legislations and the things that you're doing, remember the indigenous people and how they live. And perhaps you'll get the opportunity to meet some. Because we're very, very rare. And the verdict is not in whether we'll even survive. So I apologize if sometimes it may seem like I'm not too overjoyed when I hear things about doctrine, legislation, and voting and laws. We've had treaties with this government and they've never honored one of them. So much for the written word. Thank you very much. But we're all Anishinaabe, and you're Anishinaabe. If you don't buy into the colonial government, and the things that they create for their benefit, they don't follow their own laws. They don't believe in their own laws. They want you to, so they can subjugate you. The law I'm sharing with you is called the natural law, the universal law, and how the universe was created. And it went out, that original thought, it went out. And it was feminine. It wasn't masculine. How do you think the religious feel about that? To give birth to yourself through pure consciousness. And that pure consciousness went out. And like infinity, it comes back on itself. And when it arrived, the first thought was love. And whether or not that original thought was the catalyst to the Big Bang, it doesn't matter. It happened. It happened. And if it happened the way the Anishinaabe describe it, as the big dream, pure consciousness, that put out the original thought that was love, then how beautiful is that? That every particle, every piece of life, every essence in the universe, and every planet is a particle of love. So love is an energy, love is a power. It was the first original thought. We can trust that. We can build on that. We can share that. I wasn't going to use a script. I hardly ever use a script. And this is not a script, but some of the thoughts. Tune in, tune on, drop out. 50 years ago, right here, Ann Arbor. I was a foot soldier. I fought for the freedom of John Sinclair. I was running the Ann Arbor Sons to the Upper Peninsula. We had our movement, we had our cultural revolution, and it was described in such a way that is very comparable to the Anishinaabe description. At that time, they called it life drugs and death drugs. We understood and embraced the life drugs and did away, we didn't want to support the death drugs. And today, they're still both present, life drugs and death drugs. But something else also happened at that time, 50 years ago. There was a presence, there was visitors from South America that came here with a message that had been being told by indigenous groups all over the world. Here in South and North America, it was with the Inca, the Mayan, the Hopi, the Navajo, the Anishinaabe, other parts of the world, that we were living in the times of the prophecies. Going back to that initial invasion, because it wasn't friendly. So we called it the Pachacudi. And the Pachacudi is when your world gets turned upside down. We knew that our white brother was coming. We knew this. Because we survived the flood. They call it the biblical flood. It's not a biblical flood. It was a worldwide event. They don't want to, we don't want them to own the flood. That was a worldwide event. And man survived. And with oral tradition, we had the stories to tell about it. So we expected the Shoganash, don't be offended, Shoganash, that's the people that the wind blew in with their white sails come across, Shoganash. Fully expected them to show up. And when they arrived, they came and we noticed that they had the cross, but it wasn't enclosed in a circle. And our elders looked at each other and they said, we're in trouble. Our white brother has forgotten our relationship. And Pachacudi, our world was turned upside down. And so many people disappeared. They went on up into the Andes and different places. Here in North America, it was a little while later before we had that same type of invasion. But 50 years ago, some people came marching out of the mountains. They're called people of the sun. And they came down because they said, we have a common destiny. And the world is in bad shape. Even in their hideaways that they'd been there for 500 years, they could tell that the earth was crying. We call it Akia. They call it the Pachamama. Mom. Very intimate relationship with earth, that gives us life, was crying. And they noticed even in the Andes, the acid rain. And they came down. And the people were surprised because their clothing and their garb was old, like the hummingbird feathers and the gold lining and trim was something that they would see perhaps in museums and stories and artwork. But here they come. And they come in and they said, now is the time. We have to reach out to the shogunash, to those false-faced white people who came here because they're going over the cliff. And if they go over the cliff, they're taking us with them. Before that, and even during the early years leading up into the 60s and the 70s and the American Indian movement, we didn't want to talk. We didn't want to talk to the white people because they incorporate everything, steal everything, want everything, intellectual property, perhaps our medicines. But we were told we must. We have a common destiny. And after all, our little brother, our white brother, he's being abused and used just like we were. We're all on a reservation. Do you realize that? You and us, we're all on a reservation. The government isn't what you think it is. So with that common destiny, they said, go out, and you have to become the troubadours. So right here, about the same time, 50 years ago, when this cultural revolution was taking place and we were fighting for the freedom of John Sinclair and everybody, the message was brought to us and we sat under a tree somewhere, 14, 15 of us, and heard the story of the prophecies. And I've been living with that prophecy and that mission and meeting people and watching the prophecies take place for 50 years of my adult life. And this is just one more part of it. Only you are now invited to our tribal gathering as Anishinaabe, our white brother. The unity of love, the unity of vibration, who we are as a unique people. So your purpose in this moment is to understand that those medicines weren't put here with some insight that someday in the future you're going to have people suffering from all kinds of illnesses. So therefore we're going to create a medicine in advance when all those medicines come about. No. Those medicine plants were there to open up inside you your understanding of your divine relationship with the intelligent design of creation. And I don't argue religion. We don't argue religion. I'm not talking religion. We're probably talking deep, deep quantum physics. And things that science hasn't even discovered yet. And they still refuse to ask us. Consciousness. You can't put it under a microscope. You can't calculate it. But each and every one of you has ever taken some psilocybin or little mushrooms or even smoked some pot. You understand consciousness. And you understand that sometimes it invites certain energies that you didn't have before. And I want to tell you something, just for clarity. The brain is not the mind. The brain is not the mind. What you're doing with your brain is subjective. For your thoughts, it's a tool, logic, reasoning. But the mind is from without. That is what informs us. As human beings, we're born with instinct. We're born with intuition. We're born with imagination, and that creates inspiration. The 4 eyes, and that's who you are, the little eye. And then the big eye is the mind, that each and every one of us is connected to that cosmic consciousness. Some people call it collective consciousness. It's a unique understanding of who you are in that assembly of intuition, instinct, imagination, inspiration, to become your identity, your true identity. So as indigenous people, Anishinaabe people, something that we always do among ourselves with our people. When someone comes to our home for the first time, now this has been lost pretty much, except in most, deep enclaves where English is their second language. The first question was, who are you? Where did you come from? What is your purpose? And what is your creation story? So I'm asking you to think about that and keep thinking about that, because it's not something that I don't think you get the opportunity and people suggest to you very often. And I don't mean your name or your street address or where you work. Who are you? Where did you come from? And where are you going? You should want to know that before anything else. Indigenous people, we want to know that. We have fun with that. We have conversations like that. We get into it, we understand. Because we're coming from a different dimension. We're coming from a different dimension. We know that we're star beings. We know that we came from somewhere out there. We know that we're angels. We know what our purpose is. And that's frightful to a colonial government. Free people, natural people, they want to call us primitive, pagan, savage, instead of our true identity. And I'm sharing that with you because that's your true identity. You're star beings. You didn't come from Adam and Eve, that little fairy tale. Because 9 times out of 10 and 85% of the people in this country, you ask them their creation story, they're embarrassed. They don't know what to say. They want to hang their head. Because the only creation story they ever heard was really just Adam and Eve. And it's not a bad story, because it really is a metaphor for the problems that exist today, but not the way it's explained, but the way that we see it. So to know who you are is very important for the evolution of the universe. We are part of this amazing miracle called creation. I love to talk to atheists, because atheists, they get crazy over words like God and Allah and Yahweh and Creator and Great Spirit, I just love to talk and listen, then you don't exist. You don't exist because you're creation. And if there's creation, there has to be a creator. I don't care how you explain it, there's a creator. We don't try to explain it, so that's why we don't fight over it. We call it the Great Mystery, and we call it the Great Spirit. Or some people call it the Source. I like that, the Source. So in that, we want you to know that we have no word for medicine either. And we have to choose English words to touch and communicate and to have relative conversations with you. So we use the word medicine, although we don't have a word medicine, and it's mishkiki, mystery. So just as creation, healing is a mystery. And various plants, you call plant medicines, it's a mystery. But it's a wonderful mystery. how perfectly designed the earth is. And then you have people come along and they say, well, we're smarter. No, you're not. The earth has been here for billions of years. How can us, the little puny two-legged, have any intelligence greater than what we can intuitively absorb from the sun, from the water, from the earth? We're earth people. We can't live without the air. We can't live without the water. Your body does not stop at the edge of your skin. Just think about that. Your body does not stop at the edge of its skin. So easily you can understand that you're part of the whole, you're part of the cosmic, and we're all connected. The interpenetrating worlds occupying the same space. And when you have those experiences, what you're going to discover is going into outer space is the wrong direction. Going into outer space is pointless. You talk to the spiritual elders of indigenous communities, and they don't like the idea of going to the moon, taking Mars rocks, upsetting the balance that's out there. What's out there is what's in here. You want outer space, you go to inner space. Inner space is outer space. That's the way you travel. That's why you use medicine plants. Not meant to be part of a healing process, but put here as a tool for you to use to discover your universal mind relationship with mind, creator, mama, to have that reciprocity with life. Fishika, that breath of life, who you are. So as Anishinaabe, we had a role, and it was Anishinaabe and Anishinaabe. Shin. And the Shin was for the shining ones. Anishinaabe is the people, the original people. But a variation that was Anishinaabe, and they called them the shining ones. So in our life, it was the shining path. The shining path. Now I hesitate to talk like this because there's probably some FBI agents out there. I'm on the Native American watch list. And there might be a CIA agent out there somewhere. It's normal. But what happened was, these misguided students in the Cultural Revolution that was taking place between El Salvador and Nicaragua, and the fight that was taking place with the Contras and the Sandinistas. Of course, our people, the Mosquito Indians, were caught right up in the middle of it, because just like here, they were fighting over the Indian land. These two governments were fighting over indigenous land. And they thought they would be coy or cute or something, and they took that name, the Shining Path, and they incorporated that into their propaganda. And these students, they claimed that they were on the shining path. And of course the CIA in this country says, well, you know, they're Marxists, they're communists. And so for us as indigenous people, we said, you know, it's a beautiful concept, the shining path, who we are. And that comes from our grandmothers. And these misguided students come and they take this beautiful term, the shining path, and they turn it into a political thing. The shining path was to protect the earth, not possess it, but to protect the earth. So all our generations, we have Ogichida, those are the brave hearts who defend Mama, our earth, not to possess, but to protect. And we can't even use that beautiful term. We haven't been able to, but I'm using it today. I'm using it today because you're brothers and sisters. And I know you got my back. Woo! We're on the shining path. We're here to protect our mama. We're here to protect the plants. We're here to protect the knowledge that's almost lost. But thank God that you're waking up. And some of you are going to do some ayahuasca. You're going to do some mescaline, you can do some peyote, you know. I made one note, just so you know, just to show you that like this struggle here is nothing new. San Pedro. Some of you may have heard San Pedro, some of you may have done San Pedro. I personally have had the privilege of working with San Pedro shamans and been in the ceremony that created the San Pedro. But, you know, San Pedro, St. Peter. Huh? This goes back to the 15th century. It's Achuya. Achuya. How long before the Spanish came were we doing Achuya ceremonies? But the church just could not handle that. They saw what that medicine did, how it helped us laugh and unify and be together. And they knew it was strong. And they heard of those visions and stories and children breaking out in laughter. And said, we have to give this credit to the church. So they named it like they did everything else and took away our indigenous name and called it St. Peter, San Pedro. So I just want you to know that. Next time you do that cactus, it's indigenous. It has nothing to do with St. Peter. The magic from that plant does not come from St. Peter. And this is why indigenous knowledge is important for you guys to be patient. We've been patient. We've been patient 500 years. We had a Pachacuti. Now we're waiting for that Pachacuti to turn the world right side up again. And this is continuous evidence. And I've been walking this path for 50 years, being a troubadour, mostly with other indigenous people and bringing our North and South Eagle and Condor together. I'm honored and privileged to be invited to come here, to visit with you, to share with you. I never have a clue what I was going to say, and you know, I didn't need a script really. But you're very, very receptive. You're very welcome for what you're doing. It's going to go many ways, but you are what's most important. Your journey, your spiritual journey, is within and without. The outer space is the inner space. The third eye is not in your forehead. The third eye is out here. The way you see it is through purification. We have plants that is all about purification. You have so much to learn. There's things that your body can't even absorb unless you go through purification. That's why it's important, if you're going to do these plants and these medicines, it'd be helpful if you had a teacher. It'd be helpful if you had a guide. And I think, and you know what I see happening in society, we have to different levels of mentorship and therapies and help. There should be no laws. It should be, a way for people to have this understanding, but you have to have the indigenous knowledge, because we know. It's not cliche when we say the plants talk to us. It's not cliche. I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time telling you all the stories that myself personally and my friends personally, how those plants will tell you what their properties are and how to be used. It's not through science and empirical observation to come to process of elimination. It was much quicker than that, much quicker. And when you become informed, and nature, natural law, to those who are in balance and harmony with the planet, will have that communication. Those four aspects of life, and the plants is just a very important part of all of it. And we can't live without them. I'm going to wrap it up now. I just want to thank the first speakers. I enjoyed listening to them so much. I can see where their struggle is. I listened to Chuck Green. Don't know Chuck, never met Chuck, but that could have been me talking. I was here, same time, same struggle. Larry Plumunden got arrested in my backyard. Him and Jack Forrest for being, blowing up CIA building. Later on, he became Odawa. He figured out through his probation thing that he was American Indian, and he's over here, one of my native brothers now. And John eventually got freed, and You know, the whole struggle with that is legend. Right here in Ann Arbor party, you know, all together. All together. I'm going to leave you with one thing, and this is for your own mind, for you, which I call the sovereign mind. Because prior to all this doctrine, you're still a human being. You're a two-legged. Walkers, crawlers, flyers, swimmers, and the walkers, and you're a two-legged. We don't even separate ourselves by gender. So you're two-legged. So it's just to be aware of your own divine nature. As far as I'm concerned, you're a demigod. You were put here with a unique intelligence. It's like a little riddle. When you were born, I gave you the tools. Who makes the rules? You put words in my mouth when you say, enjoy. When you were young, you were given the tools. Who makes the rules? You put words in my mouth when you say, enjoy. Enjoy Ann Arbor. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Don't let anybody lie to you and take away your love and your freedom. Aho.